GBH music has always been more than a barrage of noise. It is a language of defiance, a political statement expressed through distortion, speed, and aggression. Emerging from Birmingham's raw streets in the late 1970s, GBH embodied the frustration of working-class youth disillusioned by Thatcher-era Britain. Their sonic violence was not random chaos, it was deliberate communication. Every distorted guitar riff, shouted lyric, and pounding drum beat carried a message against authority, conformity, and social decay. The essence of GBH political language lies in its sound loud, abrasive, and unapologetically confrontational. Punk, by nature, was rebellion in its purest form, but GBH pushed it further. Their speed and ferocity became metaphors for a society spinning out of control. Songs like City Baby Attacked by Rats or Sick Boy expressed alienation and disgust with modern life, echoing the discontent felt across Britain's industrial towns. The music screamed what words alone could not: rage, boredom, and the raw need to exist authentically in a world that felt mechanical and oppressive. GBH lyrics were not overtly political in the traditional sense. They rarely called for revolutions or named politicians, but their themes of survival, resistance, and individuality were inherently political. Their art stripped away the illusions of civility and showed the ugly underbelly of social order. The band's chaotic sound became a mirror to the chaos of urban life, turning distortion into a form of truth-telling. Through volume and velocity, GBH communicated the language of the marginalized, the sound of people unheard by the systems that govern them. The sonic violence of GBH was also a democratizing force. It invited anyone, no matter their background, to pick up an instrument, make noise, and shout their anger. In that sense, GBH music was not only political in content, but in form. It defied the polished, hierarchical structure of the music industry, offering a do-it-yourself alternative that valued authenticity over perfection. This raw honesty became a political statement in itself. Working-class catharsis in Leather and Spikes. Their music wasn't just loud, it was a cathartic scream from a generation trapped between unemployment lines, decaying factories, and a government that seemed deaf to their anger. In that environment, punk was more than a sound, it was survival. GBH embodied this perfectly, using leather, spikes, and distortion as both armor and weapon against a society that had already written them off. Their songs, like City Baby Attacked by Rats and Sick Boy, weren't abstract poetry or political manifestos. They were street-level chronicles, grim, unpretentious reflections of everyday struggle. GBH raw aggression mirrored the industrial decay around them. The crash of drums, the distorted growl of guitar, and Colin Abrahal's fierce vocals captured the energy of a people tired of being ignored. Every note was rebellion, every lyric a release valve for frustration. This was the sound of catharsis, working-class souls venting their pain in pure, unfiltered noise. The band's look, studded jackets, spiked hair, ripped denim, wasn't merely fashion. It was a social statement, a declaration that they refused to conform or hide. In post-industrial England, where dignity and stability were eroding, GBH aesthetic became a shield for identity and defiance. Punk style wasn't vanity, it was visibility. To be seen, to be loud, to exist proudly amidst decay. That was power. GBH's very image symbolized the working-class will to stand tall, even when everything else was crumbling. Yet beyond the aggression and chaos, there was something deeply human in GBH noise. A communal catharsis that connected the outcasts, the unemployed, the angry youth. At their shows, the pit became a ritual space where rage turned into release and isolation turned into solidarity. GBH didn't promise solutions. They offered emotional honesty. Their music reminded the forgotten masses that despair could still be transformed into defiant energy. GBH and the Ritual of Chaos. The Ritual of Chaos in GBH sound comes from their total commitment to intensity. Every note, every shout, and every crash of the drums feels like an invocation, a ceremony of resistance against conformity. Tracks like City Baby Attacked by Rats and Sick Boy aren't merely songs, they are battle cries drenched in sweat and defiance. The band's fast tempos and shouted choruses drew heavily from hardcore punk, yet they retained a British punk swagger that made them distinct from their American counterparts. Frontman Colin Abrahall's snarl and charisma turned GBH performances into near-religious experiences for fans. His voice, sharp and urgent, cut through the distortion like a preacher of chaos rallying his congregation of misfits. Guitarist Colin "Jock" Blythe sculpted a wall of noise that fused punk's raw simplicity with a metallic edge, foreshadowing the crossover sound that would influence thrash and metal bands like Metallica and Slayer. Lyrically, GBH balanced dark humor with social critique, often painting vivid pictures of urban decay, youth alienation, and the absurdity of authority. Their world was loud, filthy, and real, a world many young punks recognized as their own. In that sense, GBH Ritual of Chaos wasn't destruction for its own sake, but a release, a cathartic response to a society that offered no outlet for frustration or individuality. Over 4 decades later, GBH influence still pulses through the veins of punk and metal scenes alike. Their live shows remain feral celebrations of defiance, proving that chaos, when embraced as art, becomes its own kind of order. GBH didn't just play punk rock, they summoned it. Through every riff and roar, they turned chaos into a ritual that still burns with undying energy and purpose.